focus of my research is water, and more specifically, how we represent how water moves through our natural and built environment. And what I want to do today is provide a little context for how that knowledge is applied to the world around us. So first, let's talk about what we mean when we say water use. And in the broadest sense, we could think about any interaction between people and water, which could be brushing your teeth or cooking or drinking or bathing, but also includes watering your lawn or washing your car or irrigating our agriculture or even cooling our power plants. And when we think about water use in that broad sense, actually cooling our power plants is the largest use of water in the United States. About 50% of our water goes to that. And only about 5% of our water use is domestic water use, the water we use in our homes. If we think about how much water are we using on an individual basis, a typical person might use 60 to 100 gallons of water per day. When we look at our food, however, it's a much larger use of water. To supply our diets requires about 1,000 gallons per person per day. So what's the role of the hydrologist in all of this? Well, the water cycle is renewable. The sun comes up, it evaporates water off of the oceans and drops it on the land. And that cycle will continue. The questions for the hydrologist are largely questions of timing and quality and whether or not we can ensure a reliable supply. So let's talk about some of the challenges that we face in the United States with respect to water. And let's start with the question of water supply. How do we get clean water to where the people are? Well, one of the ways that we can do it is we can move it. We can move it into cities like we do here in Northampton. Our water comes from 10 miles up the road in Whately and flows through a pipe and then gets distributed to the residents here. If we look at a situation like California, however, the movement of that water is on a much grander scale. Here in Northampton, we have the advantage that our water comes to us via gravity, meaning we don't need to pump it or use any energy to get that water to us. In California, however, that water needs to be pumped along the way, in particular to get it over the Tehachapi Mountains to get into the city of Los Angeles. So we can begin to see the connection between our water use and our energy use. So how much is that? For a family, it's about 2.5 kilowatt hours per day for the water to be provided in California. That's about 75 kilowatt hours per month, and if a typical family bill might be 500 to 1,000 kilowatt hours for electricity, it gives you some sense of the scale that we're talking about. In addition to challenges of supply and quantity, the U.S. also faces some challenges related to water quality. Now, don't get me wrong, the U.S. has done a great job of cleaning up its drinking water. We have one of the most reliable, safest supplies around the world. So drinking water is not the issue. The issue comes in through what we'll call non-point source pollution. And sort of the funny way to talk about it is non-point source means that you can't point to the source of the pollution. Rather, this is pollution that comes from across the landscape. In particular, nitrogen and phosphorus getting into our waterways can cause algal blooms, which can then, when those algae decompose and die, will take oxygen out of the water column and will actually create what's called a dead zone or an anoxic zone, which is inhospitable to fish life and marine life. And we have a huge dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico and another one in Long Island Sound. In addition to some of these quality challenges that we face in the U.S., we also have challenges related to our infrastructure. Much of our water infrastructure in the U.S. still dates back to the original time that it was installed. So we have an aging infrastructure. The American Society of Civil Engineers has given our U.S. infrastructure the grade of a D+, which is nothing to be proud of, and we need to deal with that. So as we zoom out from the United States to look at the entire globe, the water challenges perhaps are far more fundamental. There are 1 billion people on this planet without access to clean water, and more than 2 billion without access to adequate sanitation. And many people on the globe are living in areas that are prone to flooding and they're vulnerable to those natural disasters. And then you layer on top of that the challenges of climate change. So you might ask, well, is climate change, a warming planet, is that going to lead to more floods or more droughts? And the answer is yes. Climate change is going to lead to both. We're going to have more intense rainfall and we're going to have longer dry periods between those rain events. So more floods and longer droughts. Additionally, in many areas of the world, we rely upon snow as a reservoir of drinking water to be supplied throughout the year. And as the planet warms, those snowpacks are dwindling, and we're losing them. All of these challenges can feel quite daunting. And I think it's clear that they're not going to be met by just technical knowledge or economic incentives or political responses, but rather that they require the integration of knowledge from across multiple disciplines. And what gives me hope is to be here at Smith College helping to educate the next generation of leaders. The liberal arts education that we provide to our students is exactly what they are going to need to meet these challenges now and into the future.